Welcome to this episode of the People Dividend. I'm your host, Mike Horne, and I am absolutely delighted to have in our virtual studio today Dr. Beverly Kaye. She is truly one of the individuals who earns these three accolades: author, speaker, and thought leader. Dr. Beverly Kaye's contributions for the past 4 decades have not only positively influenced clients and industry colleagues, but have facilitated respect for the learning and performance industry overall. She is the author or co-author of 5 books on engagement and development, which include the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, now in its 6th edition. And today we'll have an opportunity to talk about now in its 3rd edition, just released at the tail end of 2024, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, the career conversations organizations need and employees want, still in its 3rd edition. But Dr. Kaye, Beverly Kaye's books on alternative career paths, Up Is Not the Only Way, Rethinking Career Mobility, and builds on decades of research that she's done. I'm lucky to call Bev a longtime mentor, colleague, and guide in the field of engagement, talent development, retention, all things expert. Dr. Kaye, would you say a few words about yourself to our audience, please?
Well, you just said it great. I don't know what else I could add, except I've been doing this for close to 50 years, and I still love it, and I intend to keep doing it. And, what I've learned is that um, everything new can be traced back to something old that somebody said. And everything old, if you blow off the dust, could be new again. So I love that kind of thinking, and I love having been in the field for so long, and that the field has kept me alive and well read, and who knows how much longer. But one of my idols is Frances Hesselbein,
Oh, yes.
who CEO of the Girl Scouts. She passed away at 107, and we used to meet with her. Marshall was part of it, way into her 80s and 90s. So maybe I'll follow that route. I don't know.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, you're certainly active now. I mean, many of our listeners are in human resources, in learning and development, in talent functions in organizations, and many people, whether they realize it or not, have been touched by Bev Kaye's work. If you've been in Microsoft, IBM, McDonald's, Boeing, Gap, Chevron, Nestle, Johnson & Johnson, Marriott, where Bev Kaye and I met some time ago, Twitter, PepsiCo, an enormous amount of influence in the world of engagement, the world of career development. But Bev, let's talk about why you put out the 3rd edition just recently at the end of 2024, where Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, career conversations organizations need and employees still want. I mean, why a 3rd edition? You've got more to say.
Well, number one, the publisher asked, and we've been with the publisher for a long time. But a couple of big changes have happened. One, how do you career coach remote employees? How do you do that? And what's different from seeing you all the time and face to face? So we knew we had to add that. We knew this idea of psychological safety was important. The words have been used by a lot of people. How do we incorporate that? And what's old where the dust could be blown off and is still true. And then what's new? So we tried to update the book and the theme, if you don't help them grow, they are not staying for long. So the how and the what, and as typical of all my books, it's really a practical answer. It's not a big, long, here are 13 studies that show this, but here's what people want to hear. Maybe it's more that.
It's so,
And
please.
true. And I know that career is the major reason people come to an organization, and it's the major reason people go. So career fit with all my work in engagement and retention and made it wider and deeper, I think.
Bev, you provided an endorsement for my recent book, The People Dividend, Leadership Strategies for Unlocking Employee Potential. And as I think about that in the context of help them grow or watch them go, I mean, what I really am talking about is how do you continue to create environments where dignity, kindness, and respect matter? And I think those values, I'm not sure, but they've really underpinned so much of your work, whether it's in this great new edition of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, or 6 editions of Love Them or Lose Them. I mean, what do you think are those values that have shaped your work?
You know, I think it is, I want my leaders to know me as an individual. I want people who manage me to know me as a person, and all the wealth of my experience and knowledge, and maybe both the love and work and the career work are saying to leaders, get to know your people, and get to know them in a broader way, and maybe a deeper way, and ask them some great questions. And so all the books are filled with great questions that should be asked by leaders of all their people and their families, etc.
So true about having a great question. I think about one of the most invaluable pieces of advice that I received relative to that came from our colleagues, Fred Miller and Judith Katz, also active in this field of human endeavor and making organizations better. What I've learned from them is that, you know, our oldest and easiest technology to create inclusion is to say hello. and I think you covered that certainly in the work that you've done. Now, Bev, certain things are happening which I, write about in the People Dividend, and that is that we are moving towards the gig economy. I mean, more and more people will string together careers that are made out of several jobs. We're also and people laugh, but we are at the dawn of the 4-day work week in the United States. It's on the horizon. That's in part driven by this gig economy. When you think about these kinds of events that are shaping, and so certainly so many generations in the workplace, at least 5 in many places. So we've got the gig economy, we've got the 4-day work week, we've got generations in the workplace, and now we've got the AI era of management. I really think that I wonder how people will experience organizations anymore. How will people think about organizations and their connection? So much of the work, the great work that you have done, has centered not only on the personal experience, but on that executive experience of keeping talent engaged, linking talent to strategy, creating engagement. where's all this headed in terms of how maybe Generation Alpha, the newest generation, not in the workplace, will experience organization?
Yeah. What makes me sad is for decades, some of your best friends were your colleagues in an organization. And you look forward to seeing them and having lunch with them and etc. And complaining about things with them. And as we move more and more remote, those conversations that tighten the connect between people aren't happening. And they served us well because I loved and cared about my colleagues. And, when they left, it upset me and etc. So, how do we keep that going? And if we lose it completely, then what? Will there be less warmth in our organizations and less colleagueship and friendship? So I worry about that. I see how the AI revolution is affecting the learning business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, AI does phenomenal work and can write your book for you. And, what's it going to be like a few years from now when it gets even better? Um, in the new book, Help Them Grow, we did build a book bot to go with it. And you have to have the book to get the book bot. And you have to get the bot by going on our book website, help-them-grow. And the bot blew me away. You know, um, uh, Julie and I worked with someone else to help develop it. But it will say to you, okay, Mike, you're meeting with Bev next week. How old is she? How long has she been with your organization? What are the things you think are on her mind? Do you want to practice with me, the book bot, in how you'll steer that conversation? I mean, it kind of does it all by
Yeah,
using ideas in the book and making them real.
and that's an amazing technology that's available with your purchase of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. You'll find a link in the show notes to that. As I think about it, this midst of this major transition that we're in now that the computer is becoming the factory and it generates content, it generates the house. Um, it's a major shift. We have evolved from that era of uh, the big factory, scientific management, where we really thought about operational efficiency. We thought about men and women of the corporation, going back to Rosabeth Moss Cantor. We thought about the organization man. Then we shifted into these service economies, thinking about customer satisfaction and net promoter scores and all that kind of stuff. And as we move into this AI era, what is the managerial style, Bev? What do you think the leadership style is that's going to be required to create engagement?
Uh, just a quick answer to that, and then I want to go back to something you said. I think it's going to be eclectic. I think the manager is going to pull from everything. Example, you mentioned men and women of the corporation and Roosevelt. That was eons ago. And I just spent time with Roosevelt because I was out in her neck of the woods, and she and I go back 50 years. But if you reread Men and Women of the Corporation, it's absolutely applicable to right now, as well as it was 30, 40 years ago when she wrote it. So maybe eclectic, if managers can't be eclectic, or online stuff can be. It can quote her, and it can raise awareness of things that not all of us have. So maybe age gives you and I some perspective, and maybe that perspective is buried with all of the AI deep, deep reach and span.
Well, and that's one
So,
of the things I love about, certainly earlier editions, but this new edition of Help Them Grow, I think which gets to a central tenet of what you've discussed is that it has more than 100 questions leaders can use to start a career conversation. I remember the days of the Bev Kaye cards and Career Systems International with lots of different cards, but I love how in Help Them, I have a list of, at least 100 questions, I think.
right, that comes right out of it. I think arming leaders with great questions and saying, pick the ones that fit for you and mold them and shape them so they feel like they're yours. Because maybe the way to get to the heart of an employee is by asking a question that you haven't asked before, that opens up a new side to them. And they will appreciate being asked that question. And they'll talk about it at the dinner table. You know what my boss asked me today? You know, like I happen to love the question, when was the last time you said, thought, felt, I love this work? What were you doing? Who was it with? Tell me the context. And isn't that a delicious question? And if I can't answer it, as an employee, I'll go home and sleep on it. And we even found some research that said that people will sleep on the unanswered questions that they've been asked during any day.
Our
And
managers certainly have to be good listeners to that
they do.
end.
And that's not usually a manager's forte.
Correct.
Let's face it. So it is.
Well, that goes back to the practical application then. The
Right.
theme that runs through all your books. Um, I'm going to ask another question about a theme running through all of the work that you have authored or co-authored. And in part, it comes from one of the last times I heard Ed Shine speak. And Ed was talking about his most recent book. I can't remember what it was. I think it was one of the Humble Inquiry or Helping books,
Maybe
or
humble
one of
inquiry, right?
the last book. And he said, I've probably been writing about the same thing for 40 years, whether it
Right.
was in process consultation or whether it was in, something on culture that he wrote. He said the same thing. He had written all these books, and he realized that he had been trying to work out just one idea almost his entire life, which was all about the helping profession and what it meant to help. How about you?
Right.
Is there an underlying theme or motivation around what's fueled the last several decades and certainly what I hope fuels the next?
Uh, Thank you for giving me several decades. I don't know about that, but I think I've always been caught with simplicity.
Uh-huh.
How do you make this so easy to ask and to get something from and practical? So, how do I bring it from PhD speak to ordinary people asking interesting questions and learning from more about you from the answer? Uh, so all the books, I think, do that. Maybe not, even the very first early Up is Not the Only Way, which was more an OD approach to career development, a systems approach, and less managers, what do you do, and employees, what do you do, which I moved into. But
It's interesting. I
yeah,
attribute this to Ron Ashkenazi, and I don't know if I'm sure somebody else said it, but I attribute it to him because when I was working with him quite a bit on some improvement work, his one of his go-to phrases was always "simple is hard, complex is easy." And
yeah, I love it.
I love
I
that in
love
your
it.
work. I love that spirit. I love that
I love
energy
that.
about, how to,
Yes,
it's not easy to make
right,
things simple. You might think it is, I know when we think about the ABC formula you used in
right,
your,
right,
very best-selling book, it's a simple framework, but
right.
yet it was still ingenious, wasn't it?
Yeah, you only know it's ingenious when you look back. In the moment, it doesn't. But I know I love the Mark Twain quote. Sorry, this letter is so long. If I had more time, I would have made it shorter.
Yeah, right. I do
I
love
love that.
that.
And it is how, and now everything I read says people aren't reading anymore. They're scanning. You just today, someone said people will scan an email every from 9 seconds to 15 seconds before they get rid of it. 9 seconds.
I read that you're lucky if somebody spends about 3 seconds on your website today as well. So, the decision's made, I think, within that 9 seconds, but you're lucky if
Right,
people spend 3 seconds looking at anything. So,
right, right.
um, just curious, as we have one or two more questions and then we'll begin to wrap up. When you think about, you've written extensively about staying and growing in one's current jobs. You've got many career lattices that you've modeled and introduced to many learning and development and HR professionals and other leaders throughout business. So it's so critical. Um, so you've written extensively about this. What do you think are the critical strategies? This takes it more, I think, to a personal level, but what are the critical strategies for employees to remain engaged and motivated?
Hmm. It is maybe the simplest is ask them what they love most. Maybe that question I mentioned before,
Right.
what do you love? What did you do last week that set your mind on fire or that got you saying, darn, I love that kind of work. I love working with that person. What was it? And they'll sleep on it if they can't answer. Or they'll say at dinner, my boss asked me this question and I was stumped. I couldn't figure out what I did. And I'm going to think about it. I don't think we stop to ask that kind of question. It's always related to the work at hand. And it's not helicoptering up and looking at my day, my week, my whatever, and being interested in what captured you. Like, Mike, what do you love best about podcasting? What is it? Is it fun for you? Is it arduous for you? Is it, you know, that's the kind of question.
And what I love about that kind of question is I think it can be used almost at all levels of an organization. I
Good.
could see it in my executive coaching practice with folks who are in the C-suite or owners or founders. I could see it scaling. I could see using it as a manager to someone new to an organization. So many different ways that kind of question can scale along a career.
Mhm.
And Bev, here we are, Dr. Beverly Kaye. We're now way beyond our New Year's greetings. We're almost at the end of the first quarter of 2025. Um, so there's quite a bit of the year ahead. But if you were giving advice to young professionals in learning development, people and culture, human resources, all of these related fields, or even someone new to managing. But what advice would you give to people starting their careers about navigating career paths?
You know, I would say notice everybody around you and what they do. And when they're really in the groove about what they do, and when they're out of it and look bored or look, "Ugh," and ask them questions. Maybe the best thing, is to think of people in your organization who, for some reason, you admire or capture your attention, and ask them if you could have 10 minutes of their time. Just finding out more about what they do and how they think. And you never know where that little interaction will go in the future. Somebody will remember you, or what you'll take with you, just the way you mention authors you've read, things people have said. Gather that. And people love an inquisitive young person asking real questions. And I think people love talking about their own trail, that path that diverged in the woods and I took the one less traveled. When did that person take the path less traveled? And what happened? Good question.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Beverly Kaye. As I said at the beginning of the podcast to all of our listeners, author, speaker, thought leader, Dr. Kaye, Beverly Kaye, is a legend, and not by my own words, but by many who have recognized her lifetime achievements, whether it's been ATD or others, IMS, with whom she's worked extensively. Bev, it's been great to be in conversation with you today. Thank you so much. All right. And until the next episode of the People Dividend, stay well.